Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to V with Mike G, the show of life, the show of tequila, the show of legacy, and the show of the Orendain family. Today we chat with Alejandro Orendain. He was recently in Austin, Texas to talk about Arette tequila, amazing tequila. I've been to the distillery. We talk a bit about production in this conversation, but the new branding is something else. The bottle looks great. It's just slightly modified, and the labels are a nice modernization, or actually, I think they kind of look a little more 80s, which I prefer, to be honest. But tomorrow is the beginning of a series of events for Good Juice in San Antonio at the Pearl. Tomorrow there's some private dinner and some food with tastings. Chava will be there, Alejandro will be there, Carlos Mendez Blas, some other folks. And I wanted to put this interview out to talk about Arette, as you're going to see Alejandro more and more in the market. And we talk about his life, we talk about the legacy and what that might mean for him, and how he returned from what you could call a gap year, although he's always been in the university, but to come back to the family and work with tequila. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this great conversation with Alejandro Orendain.
I think I do. I really enjoy talking about the family, talking about my life. It just feels natural now.
Yeah.
When I think about it, it kind of feels weird. If you look at it in retrospective and kind of analyze what we're talking about, it's like talking about your life, talking about how you went through your childhood and how you started working and why you did it and what's the relationship with your family, your cousins, my dad, my uncle. So it's kind of when I think about it, it feels weird, but it just feels so natural because that's what we've been doing for so long.
Do people, the attention spans are slightly different now, right? Some people want visuals, some people want audio. Do you find that it's still just as easy to connect about Arette when you're in education or this class tonight at $7,000? People have good attention spans? People
tend to have a really good attention span. Especially if you're dealing with trade people, people from the industry, they just really enjoy. You see it, right? When you start talking about the stories and where we come from and the way we kind of share our own family story, it's really nice and it's really, it feels good to see how people are interested on where you come from, right?
And tequila, such a growing market still, but the interest in agave, and we'll talk about this inevitably. People like agave. The mezcal in Texas, it grows here to some extent, and so people are particularly interested here. Do you feel that generally where you visit and do these education seminars stuff, people are pretty curious?
Yeah, of course. I think, more and more nowadays, people are starting to understand the spirit.
Yeah, right.
And not only tequila, but agave in general.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's having its own time, as where other spirits tend to coexist.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And the cocktails are interesting. They have rum, you have vodka, you have gin, and tequila kind of got its own little pedestal, and it's just kind of growing in there, and people are understanding the whole, agave culture and agave production, and not only the tequila, which is what we do, but we tend to see that in all around the agave spirits, which is really nice to see.
Well, you guys have an amazing trip. I had the pleasure of going out there for Muertos a couple of years ago, and I'm all right, I smell it. I smell what I taste now, right? It's kind of bringing these things full circle. But also, there's been an emerging channel, if you will. You're right. I think tequila is having its time. Not only because of the growth of the market, but there are a shit ton of people talking about tequila online, right? Now, I love Doug. I love Lucas. many of the other folks I've met, and many of them I've seen kind of come into the fold after all of us have been doing this 10 years already, but that's okay. Tequila's still having its moment. What is your relationship like with the influencers? Do you reach out to them directly? Is it part of the marketing? I know Brian just joined. Is this like, what's the way to engage these folks, which have become pretty important with elevating and talking about a brand?
Yeah. And I think content creators have become a really important part of the industry. And we tend to have a really good relationship just naturally. We've had them over. They visited the distilleries. Whenever they come, they reach out. We hang out. Yeah. They have maybe some groups coming. We're very happy to have them come over to the distillery. Join us for a drink. Maybe go out to a bar and just casually enjoy the culture. Enjoy what we do on our regular basis, on our regular days. And with everyone you mentioned, we have a good relationship. We've never had to approach influencers in a way that we never paid influencers or good. Content creators, because we feel like it's a relationship that's built together.
Yeah.
And from us having them on the market and being them the voice for us is very important for them to know like the reality of what we do and who we are.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you can properly talk about someone.
But I like that because it's always, I remember, and I talk very little about myself in these conversations, so just bear with me for a second. But I did TikTok shit before, kind of like right as Lucas was starting, and I really like Lucas. Yeah. We've remained really good friends, and I kept at it, right? Because I'm very compulsive. 10 years of podcasting, making records every year, all this kind of shit. But what I realized is at a certain point, I would get a lot of tequila emails. Now, not from the stuff the guys that I know, right? Like these other brands that I don't know that are kind of emerging. They're like, we'll pay you this much money for the review, and we'll do this and this. And I stopped reviewing bottles then because I never wanted to. So this is where we really align, right? The quality should speak for itself. I should be able to be free to say if I don't like something, right? And not feel beholden to a brand. So I think it's amazing that those organic relationships that you're building, having people out there, when you see it, when I saw the fermentation vats for the first time, I'm like, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
And I asked how you cleaned them. Do you use call to reduce, all this stuff. But I think that's the future of having brands that have longevity to them, right? That you don't have to pay to play. I don't like that. And so I'm glad that right there is in that place.
Yeah, of course.
But not everybody's like that, right? So upon doing my research about you, Alex, I tried to understand a few things. Now, we'll talk about Australia here probably shortly, but it seems to me when you're in primary school, if you had to choose between math, engineering, or physics, and creative writing or art, where do you fit in?
It's funny because I think I have a combination of that.
Do you?
My mom is very creative. She's an artist.
Oh,
she's an architect.
Oh.
So she paints. She's a yoga teacher, instructor. And then I have my dad, which is, it's creative on its own way. He's a storyteller. He's very passionate of what he does. But then also have my grandfather on my mother's side. He used to be an accountant.
Oh, really?
Just got the numbers. And in me, since I was very young, I was very interested in math. Maybe I was not the best, but I like numbers. I like structure.
Structure.
Yeah.
Okay, this makes sense.
I like structure, but I also grew up with that creative side of my mom.
Yeah.
Which kind of like pushed me to have that flow between, structure and also creativity and just, flowing instead of being super closed up. And
well, the blend is very, very important, right? To be able to be creative and to do that. In which ways do you find you're creative? Do you? This is a question I asked Andres too, because I was fishing for content, or at least to have a little bit of information about you. There's not a lot about you online, by the way. We'll talk about a nonprofit here in a second that you're part of, which you probably wouldn't think I would talk about. But you draw? I know you don't make music, right? You don't play music.
I did play music when I was younger. We had a band actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What are you? I don't know. I'm looking at my guitars in the corner. What do you play?
We used to do a lot of like Blink 182, Green Day.
Really? Okay.
We loved it. We
You
had a
gotta
band.
tell Andres, man, because that's like. Did
we
you really?
recorded a couple of songs, of course, covers.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We never had our own, and we used to play a lot of on like the school
Like
talent
shows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then some other talent shows here and there. But then I kind of like.
When did that dream stop?
I think it never stopped. It just I didn't find time. You know?
Oh, I see.
We kind of like want to do everything, and then so you have to start letting go some things.
Yes.
And I don't regret anything. I still, if I still probably can grab a guitar and play a couple of chords. Hopefully one day I'll find the time to go back to it and play a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then I went into sports, and
what do you play?
I really enjoy it. It's usually more. I love outdoors.
Yeah.
So
You're not very. So as someone that's not very tall, I don't think you're very tall. So it wasn't basketball, was it?
Not basketball.
See, there we
No.
go. All right, right on that one.
I mean, to be honest, I think I played a little bit of everything at some point.
Did you?
I did soccer. I suck at soccer.
Yeah.
Not good.
Same.
Not good with my feet.
Yeah.
I did some basketball when I was in primary school.
Forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, again, we're quite short. So center doesn't work out for us.
But what I really stuck on was alpinism, mountaineering,
oh, cool.
hiking, climbing.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of, I did mountain biking. I still do quite a bit of mountain biking. I did dirt bikes. I love snowboarding.
Oh, yeah.
Although we don't have any snow in Mexico.
Where's the last place you went snowboarding?
I think Whistler.
Oh, yeah. I grew up in Salt Lake
City.
City, so we'd go.
Salt Lake City. I love Salt Lake City.
Now, as someone who relates more to hardcore and punk music, I was a skier. So I'm like, what did I do? I did the total wrong one, right?
Yeah.
But no, I got that sense like that outdoorsness is really important to you. So there's a couple things when I think about expectations, right? Whether it's self-expectations or for them family or whatnot. If you think about it, you're an heir, right? An heir to the throne or whatnot. A throne, And so did you at some point as you're kind of becoming a young adult feel any obligation that you had to take over those reins? Was there a conversation that your dad had with you? You're like, you know what? Go fuck off for a couple years, right? And do your thing, maybe in Sydney or whatever, but you got to come back and take care of the business. Was that how that was?
Not really. We've never felt that obligation.
Yeah.
We were always my dad was very open, very free in terms of what we wanted to do. He told us, this is what we have, right?
Yeah.
He made it clear, and we've understood the business since a very young age. And he tells a story, a very cool story, that when he was young, he understood what tequila meant to him and his family when he was very young. I think he was like 5 years old. And this, I'll be brief in this story, but my dad was sitting down with my grandfather and one of his like big clients. Family kind of like lunch with the clients, and he saw my grandfather, ordering a tequila and the client as well, and he's like, oh, can I try a little bit of it? Oh no, he stand up to the bathroom, right, my grandfather, and my dad snuck up and tried the tequila. He was 5 years old, right?
Oh, okay.
And he was like, what? This is horrible. Like, what is this? This tastes terrible. I don't like it, right? So a lady from another table kind of like sneaked in and told my grandfather, "Oh, your kid tried the tequila," and he turned around and he's like, "Hey, what do you think about it?" And he's like, "This is terrible. I hate it." He took a couple of seconds and told him, "This is the moment that I'm going to talk to you about this. This tequila, it's the reason you have a house, you have food on the table every day, you go to school. This is everything to us."
Yeah.
So that kind of like stuck in my dad's, head. So next time they went out and they asked what they want for drinks. He was 5.5 now, right? And he very confidently, he said, "A tequila, please."
5-year-old, I love it.
At 5 years old. And this story just kind of like represents or tells a little bit of how we grew up learning that the spirit, tequila specifically, it's the base and the core of our family, right? It's what keeps us where we are. It's why we have food on the table. So we have a close, respectful relationship with the tequila. And going back to the main question is, was I felt the obligation to be here?
I mean, you think about it, how important it is generationally. Yeah. It seems like there'd be some kind of sense of obligation.
So we do feel it. And I think it kind of like went in waves. when you're very young. You
Yeah.
want to be an astronaut.
Mhm.
You want to be a policeman. You want to be a doctor, right?
Punk
Who
rock
knows?
guitar player. Yeah.
Or a guitar
Yeah.
player, a musician, right?
Yeah,
At some
that's
point,
right.
I wanted to be a musician.
Mhm.
But then you start understanding your dad, understanding his career,
Yes.
what he does, what his passion, is.
Mhm.
So now you want to be like your dad. So you go from wanting to be an astronaut, a doctor, a guitar player, to wanting to be like your dad.
Mm.
And that's like a transition I had at some point. But then you go a teenager, right?
Mhm.
You're a teenager, you want to do your own thing, you want to be independent. You want to, kind of like do your own
your
story,
terms.
right? Your terms, your
Yeah,
story.
Yeah.
So I went through those phases, but always very open. We've always worked with my dad
Mhm.
at some point on the fields, every Sunday, every Saturday, every weekend, going out to Tequila, going to the fields, seeing the plantations, seeing the harvestings, going to the distillery, learning the whole process since
Yeah.
very young, helping, put labels on, do some cases, anything we could do.
Mhm.
But then, as a teenager, I kind of wanted to do my own thing. So I studied industrial engineering, but I always went back to sales, right? I'm not a technical
Really?
person.
So you're talking about being good at math and like in structure, which is, I mean, obviously foundational to being
Yeah.
an industrial engineer. And that's what you majored in, and that's kind of where you went to the University of Guadalajara. You studied in Sydney too, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And then you walked away from it?
I never walked away from it. I feel like the industrial engineering I studied was also like administration focused, like
Oh, I see.
how to optimize process
Mm-hmm.
in any way, in a production line or on the business structure.
Yeah. They call it what business process improvement, BPI, is what we
Yeah.
call it in tech, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I kind of like stuck with that, but I've always been a commercial person. So I went with sales, and I've always, since we were very young, we were working, working on something that I could. I loved sports, right? I loved bicycles. So if I wanted to go biking and I didn't have the money to get a bike, what do? I started working as a
sounds-
bike mechanic. So
Yeah, okay.
since I was 14, I started working on a bike shop as a mechanic.
No way.
So I could afford a bike, and I could, afford going to races and get discounts on my,
Yeah.
equipment and stuff. And then from there, I worked on a labeling machine, labeling company, also on sales. I also did some construction
I
material.
saw the construction stuff. Yeah.
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 So I did some. I was like, I was doing sales of a product, a construction material we were importing from Colombia and distributing in Mexico. And at that time, my cousin was already very involved in the company. So I think they were growing, and there was a point where it's a family business.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's kind of like I was thinking about it. Should I go into the family business? It's going to be messy. It's going to be complicated. It's going to be okay, right? My dad's there, my uncle's there, my cousin is there.
Yeah.
So they kind of reached out, and Lalo was like, "Hey, Alex, I need you to come here. Please help me out. Like, we need the support. We need the family.
Yeah.
We want you on the market." So I kind of like quit what I was doing, and I started working full time for Arette.
How old were you when that started? And what year?
That was
issues?
3 years ago.
3 years ago.
3 years ago. So I always say we've always worked for Arette, but we were not getting paid
Yeah.
until a couple of years ago.
I mean, this is sales if you think about it. This is the story of the family.
Yes.
And I was gonna, because I like it when we have interviews and like some people are watching, because it's like these moments. If you film them and stuff, it's just different. This is more like a jazz duo kind of thing. It's kind of going back and forth. But I know that I'm not gonna. I'll talk about movies way too much. I'm not gonna do it. But I know there are some top of mind stories I have, anecdotes from when people like, oh, tell me about this and this. So I'll ask Tom later probably, but I'm gonna ask you now. The 5-year-old story, is that one that you deliver quite a bit with your tastings, or is that?
That's one that my dad delivered.
That's okay, cool. Yeah.
Because that's how he explains how he understood
Yeah.
the business. But it's also stuck to him.
Well, it's very symbolic. I like it as a metaphor, whether it was 5 3/4, 5 1/2. It doesn't really matter the age. It's really just that kind of theme there. So when you're traveling around a bit now, I mean, I saw you last year, I think, for the Maverick Tasting Road
Yes.
Show and stuff. So that's at least once a year you're coming into Austin, which is pretty incredible. knowing that you love the outdoors, and hotels, planes, bars are purely not outdoors.
That's where I live.
How do you create that balance for yourself, knowing that probably the sun refuels you?
I'm still working on it.
Yeah,
I'm still working.
You're still
on it.
young though, I'm old age, ripe old age now. So, but what if you can't get outside? Do things like yoga, meditation, these other kinds of practices? Is that ever something that you look into as well?
Yeah, of course. Especially going outdoors. I do some mountain biking. So
good.
Every time I have a chance, I try to go out there. If it's 6 in the morning before going to the office, I go out there. I bike a little bit with my friends, and then I go back to work. I'm like you said, we're traveling most of the time.
Yeah,
maybe an average of 2 weeks a month. We're off, so it's 6 months a year that you're on a plane, on a hotel, on different markets, meeting new people. So there's a lot of things going on, and it's kind of tough to find that balance between your personal preferences and what kind of like keeps you alive and like gives you that sense of freedom, right? Because we want to work, we love working. There's no there's people saying, my dad even, like, there's no work-life balance.
That's fair.
There's work, and there's
especially
life.
if it's your family, right?
But,
I see. They've got to be completely separate, he's saying.
No, the other way around. There's work and life, they're all together, right?
I see.
Our life is our work, and our work is our life. So we wanna find not just a work-life balance, but you gotta be everything. And it's kind of tough, right? Like right now, working and traveling so much, finding that point where you feel comfortable and your body feels safe, and you eat well, and you sleep well, and you do exercise, right? Which is the most important thing. I think, like I was saying, I haven't still found the spot. I am on, like you said, I'm young. I'm still on the age where I'm like, I can do it all now, right?
Yeah.
This is the time where I have the energy, I have the drive, I have everything to be out there, work, and there's gonna be a point on my career, on my life, that I'm gonna be able to, maybe step a little bit more out of the every daily travel equation, and hopefully be more strategic and have more time for ourselves. And it's gonna be very tough because it's all merged together.
Well, it's right. And how do you? I don't have that problem, right? I can go to a place that I'm not related to, and I can come home. Now, I own a distillery, and I've got brands, and that changes it a little bit, because anytime you talk about a brand, you're talking about yourself in that case, if you own it, right? So it is kind of difficult. I know I didn't think about this much in my late 20s, right? But it became pretty clear in my early 30s I started to think about this. But is family something, not family, working with the family, remaining close to your parents and your cousin and everything, but starting a family, maybe that next generation of Orendains. Do you think about that? Yeah.
Right now it's not close. I don't even have a girlfriend.
Well, you can punt it now, because I think you're 28 or something.
I'm 28.
Yeah, you could just punt it, right? You can punt it 5 years, it's fine,
Yeah.
But does that exist? So something that was very clear to me, even at a young age, like, I just don't have it in me. Tom's got kids, and he's very paternal. Like, he has these natural elements to him. I don't like kids. I can't do it. Like, but for you want to be a father?
I've had this, inner debate.
Yeah.
I have like the two sides where like you said, I don't like the first stage of kids, but there's right, like,
well, actually the first stage is pretty
like the
good.
First couple of years is gonna be very tough. I know everyone says like that feeling, that warm feeling of having a kid and loving it, unconditionally. I think it's very, very cool, very nice, and something that we look up to. But for me, it's now that I grow older. Like you said, when I was younger, I was like, I don't think I want to have kids.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. But as you start growing older, then that feeling of wanting to be part of that next life, right? That next generation, and also making. I mean, I think we are all a little better version of what our parents were. Hopefully, right?
Yeah, like that's actually a very good, and if I'll be cheeky for a second, almost a distillation of our folks. You know what I mean? Yeah,
exactly. A little bit more refined, a little bit more, pure.
That's right.
And hopefully learning from the mistakes and making it better, and becoming a better person and learning more stuff and knowing more. So it's also very exciting to think about all those things I've learned or I can still learn.
Yeah.
How do I pass that on? And then also the legacy that's going to become. How do I make what I'm doing stay and be better, for the next generation?
I love that. And before we will talk about the brand. I know I've got two brand guys, and sometimes they're like, man, this fucking guy, what's he talking about? But in the past 3 years of which you've been on the road, traveling, sharing the beauty that is the juice of Arette, what's maybe the thing you've learned most clearly about yourself? Because you talk about boundaries, you talk about family someday, but you can punt it back. But what's maybe something that you've learned about yourself in this new role in traveling and selling for the family?
I think it made me really clear that this is something I'm passionate about, right?
Amazing. Yeah.
I mean, being out there for 50% of the time and, doing 12-hour days and 60, 80-hour weeks and you still do it happy, you still do it with pride and you are there and you're happy and I learned that I really like this and I really enjoy what the family does and the spirit and the whole industry.
Yeah.
But I also learned that I still need my time. I love exercises, exercising. I love sports. And sometimes I feel like I'm letting go of that part of me. Not letting go, but I'm missing that part of me that was outdoors all the time. So it's kind of like I try to push myself sometimes to be out there.
Yeah.
So even though we're working, how do we make it worthwhile the time, right?
That's really it. Something I think everybody calls it a social battery.
Exactly.
Right? You said you're putting in 12-hour days. You're talking even more. Hopefully this is a little easier, right? But I know you guys had market visits. You got another tasting tonight. Is there just a time, like, do you set a time? Because sometimes for me, I'm like, all right, I'm at 10, whatever it is, let's say 10 p.m. Like, I'm no more talking, like, and I'm going to go. The brand stuff's done, right? Is it that easy for you, or does it get well into the late nights?
No, I think it gets well into the late nights. Yeah. I mean,
but that makes sense. Yeah.
It just feels natural.
Yeah, it does. And you want to be there. You're there representing the family, amazing tequila and all of that. So something that I love is actually how this story ends with Arette. But tell me, so what I want is a historical capture of what the horse Arette represents for Mexican culture and the ultimate demise of its owner, if I recall correctly, which I think is a very tragic ending to the story. But so where does the name Arette come from?
Arette, it's the name of a horse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Champion horse from the London Olympic 1948. He was ridden by a general called Humberto Mariles. The horse, it's a very long story, but the horse basically lost vision on an accident.
Mm-hmm.
He had a cut on the ear, and that's why the name Arette, because Arette means earring in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And in that same accident, he also started losing vision on one eye. So he was a one-eyed horse, ridden by a general from the Mexican military. They were doing horse show jumping. At that time, the Mexican president was Miguel Alemán.
Mm-hmm.
So when the general wanted to go compete to the London Olympics, the president basically prohibited Mariles to take Arette because he said it was going to put Mexico to shame with a one-eyed horse. So, Mariles, the general being really stubborn, decided to go anyways against president orders, talked to the team, told them what was going on. He was going to take full blame and full responsibility. Long story short, they headed to London. When the president found out, he put out a warrant for his arrest. He was going to go to military prison and lose his ranks and probably be sentenced to death, right? Because the president being the highest rank of the military in almost every country. But he ended up getting to London with the team and Arette without being caught, competed and got the first gold medal ever for Mexico in the history of the Olympics.
1948, you said?
1948. Yeah. And actually 2 gold medals and a bronze medal for the team.
Really?
So it was a really big deal. The president had to take back everything he said, right? They welcoming the general back into Mexico with open arms. There was a big parade going on. And it just kind of stayed as a legend, a champion horse.
Yeah. Well, something it's a beautiful metaphor because we talk about mezcal tequila in a lot of places in the world. Not now, usually tequila's having its moment. But it's man, low quality, underestimated, right? Discard it, right? Workers drink. All these kind of stupid things I've heard over the years about tequila or mezcal. And then it just represents and says, no, it's the beauty of the country. And it's despite the difficulties that shall persevere, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I love this story. But tell me the PS, the end of the story with the general that happens. Because that, to me, was the very tragic. And you guys know all this piece, right? Of course, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's amazing. All right, so what happens to the general?
Well, the story is kind of...
Do they vary?
It varies. Yeah. It's not completely... Because of the technicalities of the story, right? I think there's some things that they maybe never said, and some, maybe a country said something and another country said
Sure. So what are some of the rumors flying that happened to the general?
The rumors are that the general was caught flying in and out of the country, apparently smuggling. So he was caught, he was put in jail, and then the story says that he took his life inside of jail.
Oh, that part I didn't hear. Okay.
But of course, who knows exactly what happens, because he knew a lot. He had a military passport, right? So that way he could fly in and out without being searched or anything.
Yeah, and he was flying out of Mexico smuggling?
Yeah, I think he was going to Europe.
The France or something, right? So I've heard some kind of rumor about that.
Yeah.
Okay, what's in that's one take. Is there another take?
Well, the one take is that he was smuggling, right?
Yeah.
On his own. The other take is that he was actually doing it for someone on the government.
Okay.
And he got caught, and because he knew too much, then he got killed in jail, and they made it look like he killed himself. But
I mean, it's a really cinematic story, though.
Yeah.
Right? From rags to riches kind of thing. Or flip it, riches to rags in this particular case, right? But I love that, and I think that's one, I heard in y'all's tasting room, and I didn't fully understand, but the metaphor itself, even if it's a bittersweet ending, I still love that story.
There's people that have approached us, and even though we don't have anything to do with the horse or the general or the story, they've been wanting to do a movie about it. So
I think that's why I say cinematic, like really beautiful story, I guess, at the end of it, kind of that way. So one of the things too is that when I've got to see all the production process and kind of smell the things and taste the things, and I think we're all grateful in the industry that people that love the one-on-one fuerte, that became a reality. You talk about collaborating with the hospitality industry. Yeah. That is ultimately the result of bartenders coming out to the distillery. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so that's a gesture of good faith, goodwill, something I particularly love. But I want to know for you, because you're now trying to differentiate the product. There's so many damn tequilas. Now, I'm familiar with you guys for a long time. But so you got artesanal and clásico, right?
Correct.
And I know there's a little bit of a difference, but for you, how you position those to people when you're talking about this one's for you and this one's for you, how do you articulate that?
I try to keep it very simple in most cases, unless we're at the distillery, right?
Yeah,
we can really go into technical details, and depending on how we go. But there's three main differences between the classic square bottle and the artisanal, which is more the round cylindrical.
Yeah, which is what we got. This is a Blanco
right here.
Yeah, perfect. I'm gonna smell this guy.
The three main difference would be the ovens, the fermentation tanks, and the cuts of heads and tails on distillation. So classic line, we have an autoclave, which is gonna take 13 to 15 hours cooking. It's like a big pressure pot. Of course, we are able to put some pressure in it. It's not a lot, but it's gonna be enough to be able to raise the temperature to 110 degrees Celsius.
Because I think you'll know the answer to this, and it's only for my infatuation. Roughly what PSI?
I think it's 1.5 bar.
See?
Bar.
Yeah. Oh, bar. Got it.
Yeah.
That's good.
I don't remember.
Very low
PSI
pressure
is.
for those that don't work.
Very
with
low
pressure.
pressure. Yeah, we could. There's a couple of reasons. We could do higher pressure,
faster,
higher temperatures, faster cooking. There's two main reasons. One of them is the style, technique, and just different. That's what my uncle and my dad learned, and that's how they like it.
Yeah, I like that.
The second one is because of safety issues, right?
Yeah, right.
We have really old autoclaves. Having pressure on autoclaves is not optimal, so we decided to keep it that way. So that's why it takes around 14 hours and instead of 8, right? That you could do it at 6-8 hours.
Right, and acid. Right. Now, I'm drinking the Blanco, and this is the first... Do you want to pinch? I know this is a long day for you.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that I was just talking about Arette and how beloved it is, but there's a reason why, for me, I think that I really like it. There's many other... In terms of quality and the water... Salud.
Salud.
there is just a pinch, and I confirmed it when I went down there. There's a pinch of malolactic fermentation that's going on, right?
Yeah.
So it makes it a little more rugged to me, because there's stuff that's like too clean, right? Sometimes I'm like, I can't even taste the fermentation, right? Maybe I'm particular, but I get to be. I'm old and cranky and shit, right? So, okay. But this, it has a rusticity to it. And I imagine, is that intentional? Because it's all wild yeast, right?
I mean, not necessarily intentional. It's just the process, I guess, we've always done, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it does have a lot to do. And that lactic fermentation is something that's very common in Arette, especially on the artisanal line.
Yeah.
And you'll see that on the concrete tanks. So kind of like going through the process, right? The Clásico is the autoclave.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have meals to crush and extract all the juice with deep well volcanic water. Stainless steel fermentation tanks for the classic line as well. It takes 3 to 4 days. And then double distillation in stainless steel and copper combined pot stills, where we do small cuts of heads and tails, ending up with a big batch we call the body. Bigger batch we call the body.
Yeah.
But with the artisanal, we're going to go back to the ovens, right? The first difference, which is going to be, we have a brick oven, which is going to take 35 to 48 hours cooking. So there's no pressure, just time and steam. We have the same meals to crush and extract the juice. And then we have concrete fermentation tanks, which is where they kind of like lactic.
Yeah, it's cool. They're really big, man. I was surprised how deep they are. With the oven cooking, do you pull the meal out, like the first juice that comes off? I know that's something some of the people do, or do you just so they let it cook for a little bit, pull that particular liquid out, and then continue cooking?
Exactly, yeah. Especially on the autoclave.
Yeah.
We kind of like open the valves a couple of times on the process of cooking. The first time we open it, comes out what we call bitter mieles amargas, right? The bitter honeys. Those bitter honeys are still a little too bitter for the process. Maybe some debris, some dirt from the field and stuff.
It's all it's very dark liquid, right? All the dirt. Yeah.
So that gets cooled down and discarded. And then the second time we open the bulbs, that's what we call sweet honeys, now, right? Okay. Mieles dulces, and that's used on the process.
And that's something like. We're talking about process. What's a question besides additives? What's a question that people always ask you on these trips about process? What's something someone's going to ask you in a tasting, or they're going to ask you when they're out there at the distillery?
I mean, a lot of questions also come from the agave, right?
Right.
How old is it?
Right.
Where does it come from? Is it your own agave? Also fermentation. People are starting to understand fermentation, which for me is the most important part of the process. And if we go back to where we were of fermentation, it is the most important part of our process as well. So it's natural, spontaneous fermentation. A lot of people use some modern champagne yeast or lab yeast or some kind of like modern yeast, mother yeast that they've been kind of like holding and maintaining over years and years. For us, it's always natural, so spontaneous. Which means that the process or the flavors are going to change a little bit over time. It's going to be different in winter. It's going to be different in summer. Yeah. Because you have different wild yeast from the fields around the different fruit trees that we have on the valley, on Tequila Town. And that's going to also affect and impact the flavors. And especially with that natural spontaneous fermentation, we have to wait for the yeast, the wild yeast, to be able to process all of the sugars and transform them into alcohol, which is kind of like that's the moment where we can see that lactic fermentation process start.
Because too cold, it's got to go longer. Too hot, it's quicker. Or can it just introduce? I consider it like leaving the bar open past close, right? So if you leave it open, like New York, it's like eventually some vagrant's gonna come in and there's going to be some problems, and that's like how fermentation, like Durango, mezcals from Durango, for instance. Once you let them go too long, it just builds that kind of really incredible lactic quality. I recently found at a discount, thank God, an extra añejo Arette that was at about 46% ABV. I had never seen it was a single barrel.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, private barrel selection.
Fucking massive. It's really, really beautiful. So what is really the perspective because when we're drinking the Blanco, I get it. I can taste it and I can even see kind of how these things are coming through in the flavor. But when you go to things that are aged for that much, in this case, it goes, over 36 months or whatnot, what's the perspective then? do you still try to have that oak present, those other kinds of vanillins, but still have what makes Arette just slightly funky? How do you manage that over so much time to balance those two contrasts?
It's usually, especially on the extra añejos, which is the Gran Clase, we use the older barrels.
Oh, okay.
So we use,
okay.
Yeah, American Oak X bourbon barrels.
Yeah.
We do not chip or rechar them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We use them as they come. So
Cool.
wet barrels, right?
Yeah.
And we can keep them for a very long time. We could keep barrels for up to 15 or 20 years.
Is that right?
And that depends on, we'll switch a barrel when it breaks or when it doesn't give out any more of the flavors and notes that we want.
20 years is some of the older ones? That's pretty incredible.
So that's how we're able to keep those really present agave, tequila arette, iconic flavors on a 4 or 5 year extra añejo, which it's been sitting on a very old barrel.
I see.
And that's usually what it happens, right? We have those extra añejos sit there for 4 or 5 years on some of the oldest barrels, so it doesn't like over oak our product.
Right.
Or
any kind of cask explorations that you particularly are interested in? I know I'm seeing more, like I'm seeing Sauterne and stuff now, things that weren't really traditionally in tequila. Anything that you would be passionate about trying?
Yeah, we've done a couple of like independent private barrels that are very interesting, and also we have some random barrels just sitting there on the warehouse that I'm very eager to try. There's some South American rum that it's been sitting there for close to 8 years.
No way, really?
Yeah, and
with like Guyana is South American, right? Brazil, I guess it would be Brazilian rum too. Anyway, it's gonna taste pretty interesting.
It was an Australian guy called Happy, and he came down. He had a really cool bar in Australia, and he just brought the barrel, and he asked my dad if he could, do a private barrel, and we would age the tequila on his barrel.
Yeah.
He brought it down to the distillery. That was before COVID, right? Like way before COVID, and then he just kind of like disappeared, and we haven't been able to get a reach or get a hold of him.
Yeah.
So the bar has been sitting there for 8 years.
Oh man.
So my dad is wanting to do an edition that's called like a happy edition.
That's great.
From a very special something different barrel. We have also some X red wine.
Oh, that'd be cool too.
So there's a lot of interesting barrels that you could use. For me, I'm always drinking blanco, so I could do one or two of some interesting age tequilas, and I do really enjoy them, but I don't know, I'm just always drawn back to blanco.
That's when most of the people that are working for the distilleries or make the juice, I mean, they kind of often go back to and saying like, this is the way that, because the purity of it, it's just unobstructed by oak and all of that. So there's a couple things that I want to talk about. I know you got this tasting net, so I've got a couple more questions for you, and I think inevitably in Texas it gets hot in this room, right? Or at least a little muggy, I suppose. But I was reading about a foundation you were affiliated with as a student, an engineering student called Spes Nova.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And how I want to tie that in is some of the tenets of this nonprofit are to help places that are less, they don't have proper buildings, they don't have proper infrastructure, proper funding to actually create a market and sustain a small town, which obviously some of that exists in tequila with a lot of the farmers and things like that. So that runs in your blood to help others, help communities, right? What is a way in which Arette tries to give back or work closer to improve community conditions?
Yeah, that's very funny. That's a cool story. We did a project in university also to help artisans, structure their whole business and be able to export.
Oh, cool.
So we worked with them for a year and a half to get everything structured, teach them everything they need to know, from getting a bank account, how to export, all the, regulations and everything they had to maybe get or do the tramits, maybe go get even their own IDs that maybe they didn't have. And for them to like be all set to be able to export their crafts to the US.
Amazing. Any particular category, or was it specifically spirits?
No. This was from artisans.
Just so no matter, like could be food, could be textiles, like all that.
These specific artisans were doing clay.
Oh, very cool.
Yes.
Okay.
That was very fun. But in Arette, I think that translates to Arete as well, and the way we kind of understand the business as a family, right? And that's something that my dad always talks about, and we kind of like grew up with that intention and that education of family and that sense of being part of it, right? So kind of one of the things that it comes to mind, it's the way or why Arete is still hand labeled, right? We did maybe 2 years ago a recent implementation of a bottling line, but at the time we already had around 17 people working on that line before we had the pretty much automatic machines, right? And the only thing that remained manual was the labeling. And people always ask, why did you not just put in a labeling machine and make it more efficient and faster and cheaper? But my dad's take on it is, we already had 17 people working on the bottling line at Arete when we implemented this line. So it didn't make sense just to add a labeling machine and get rid of all these people. That some of them are sons and daughters of people that still work with us or that have worked with us. We've had 3 generations of families working with the family as well, in the company. So it just doesn't make sense, right? We want to, as long as we can, help and maintain that family of Arete that we try to refer to, all those people that are still there and are going to remain there. It's also a part of what we kind of understand of doing something right. Yeah. Right?
No, that's amazing. It's like value, right? To have.
If you're working somewhere and you want your son or daughter to come in to work to the same place, that's a good sign of what you're doing.
I agree. I just sensed it kind of from you and wanting to give back to people and kind of share the knowledge that you have. And now obviously Arete having such a legacy, sharing that back with the community as well. All right. So I got 2 more for you. 2 more questions. So I saw a bunch of different bottles not scattered, I'm being dramatic, but in the living room and then here by the computer. What can people expect to taste tonight at $7,000? Or Las Perlas, sorry, but either way, same thing.
Tonight?
Yeah.
Or we're going to go through the whole artisanal lineup.
Oh, amazing.
So we do have the steel strength. We have a Blanco, Reposado, Añejo, and Extra Añejo.
I love that.
Gran Clase.
Yeah. So they're in for a treat. And this question I always ask everybody, and I'm trying to think of how to frame it for you, but we'll do it in the frame of music, okay? So you're sipping the Fuerte anywhere in the world, doesn't matter where. But you could have a tequila with any musician, living or deceased. Who would you like to have a tequila with?
That's a good one. I don't know, man. This is one of those tough questions.
I know.
You only have one choice,
No, that you could do. No, but there's not that much pressure. Like, you're not being deposed right now. It's not going into a legal case or anything.
I don't know. I think for some reason, I think it would be very interesting to sit down with someone like Michael Jackson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got a lot of questions for Michael Jackson. I mean, I think it'd be a very
young
interesting conversation.
Yeah, 100%.
Growing up with there's a bit of similarity, right? He grew up with the family. Father was doing the thing. So I see that. And there's the movie's coming out. Yeah. I'm curious how it's going to turn out. That's interesting. No one said Michael Jackson. I like that. So last bit, I know Andres is divide and conquer in the market. It sounds like Andres is in Dallas and then you're here in Austin. Are you guys going anywhere else in Texas or where are you off to next?
We're going to San Antonio.
Oh, good.
Tomorrow.
Good.
Andres is going to be in Dallas. My dad is currently in Florida.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Here and there.
If anyone had to go to Florida, that's probably great to have the parents go to Florida.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then when are you back to Tequila?
I go back to Guadalajara on Friday. I'm doing masters, so I have to be there on, straight, from the airport to the class.
Yeah.
A couple of days, Friday, Saturday, and then from there, Sunday, I'm off to Canada again.
Really? That's amazing. You get enough sleep?
Not really.
Well, I'm glad we made this happen. I'm glad we met just about last year at the boot shop down in Congress. And Alex, Tom, Brian, thanks for so much coordinating this. And so I'll see you soon, man. I'll be down there again. I told Andres, I'm like, I got to come back and visit.
You have to, Mike.
So now that he's, I got a target on my back with him. Anytime he's like, I want you to come down there. So I'm like, all right, let's go. So, but Alex, it's been amazing talking with you, man. And thank you for sharing such beautiful tequila.
Please do, Mike. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. And it was nice talk.
Absolutely.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So what do y'all think? Alejandro Orendain from the Arette legacy, if you will. I recently revisited the 101 de Fuerte Blanco Tequila, and it's something, I love it. It catches you off guard with that proof, but it's rich. I can't wait to see Alex again. I know that he's going to be at Good Juice on May 2nd at the Pearl in San Antonio. A lot of great brands participating, some mezcal, some tequila, and other agave-related items. And it's a great event, and I hope that everybody can get to attend one of these brilliant Good Juice events. I thank you, Alejandro. I thank you, Tom Kerner, who's always coming in clutch to connect me with the best people in this industry so I can have these really brilliant and intimate interviews. So thanks, everybody, for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter if you're looking at the reproduction of Ash's chainsaw from Evil Dead, or if you're thinking I should use the real thing that I've got storing in the garage, please keep dancing.